What up, our little honeydews, and welcome to Sippin N Bitchin, where the drinks are icy and the book talk is spicy, and your main bitches are mad because pronunciations are really tough and we're upset right now. I'm your main bitch, Sam, or we're your whatever.
And I'm Steph. You said I'm your main bitch, Sam, and then I could have said I'm your main bitch, Steph, but I don't want to be that aggressive.
I know, but I said it and then I was like, wow, that sounds really like I just took over. Thinking, whatever.
It's okay.
I'm mad. Okay.
We all have control issues and anger issues. It's okay. Yeah, so funny backstory is for the show notes, we're still trying to figure out our groove with the show. So we do our show notes, and typically, like, I'll start them, or depending on the week, Sam will start them, whatever. And per every week, we always have these issues with pronunciation, and like we don't remember what's the correct way to say something, XYZ thing. So I thought in my head, why don't I put the pronunciation guide, at least for like the main people that we know are prominent in the book, at the beginning of our show notes. So if you are a part of our Patreon and you see our show notes, like, hey, there's a pronunciation guide. So Sam had not seen really like that I added that until right before we were going to record. And so she was reviewing the names and how you pronounce them, and she learned that there are so many that she was like, huh? Excuse me? Jennifer, what? Say who?
I said whoever edited this needs to go back because they got some things wrong.
Not that she didn't create the universe or anything.
Amazon's outside my door. I have a ton of packages coming today.
Are they all books?
No, one of them is, and it's A Light in the Flame.
Oh, hey, good timing.
Exactly.
Would you like to go get your Amazon packages? Or are they still unloading the truck?
Okay, I was waiting for him to do the scan thing. 1 sec.
Clearly, she prioritizes books, and I respect that, and that's okay. Anyway, so this book has 50 chapters in it. So we're clearly not doing, ideally we're doing 4 parts again. So if you're listening to this on part 1 day, so Wednesday, part 2 will be out tomorrow, Thursday, and then next week, Wednesday and Thursday, will be parts 3 and 4. Just so we can balance and not talk your ear off and, overwhelm you. Yeah, if you're on YouTube, you can see how many packages Sam just got. If you're audio listening, it was 2 really big boxes and then 1 stacked on top. So here we are. We made it. I was just telling them how we're doing 4 parts because we don't want to, blow their eardrums or something. You couldn't have waited until after we were done recording to open this box. She is so impatient. It's fine. Yep. ASMR, little box opening. Yep. Oh, you only heard the 1/2 of it. That's awkward. Imagine if that wasn't what you thought it was. It's not what you thought it was. You opened the wrong box. Joke's on you. Karma.
My husband's book. It's not mine. I thought they'd be in the same box.
Oh, well. Sucks to suck.
I was gonna be like, look. Whatever.
It's okay. They can look next up. Not.
I'll post
the next
it on the
episode.
Instagram. Okay.
Oh, okay. Mine is right there because I already bought them all because I have spending money issues. Anyway, 50 chapters of this book. Ideally we'll get through a good little chunk of it today. So, yeah, but we always talk too much, so here we are.
Not us, never.
Oh, the pronunciation. I'm gonna still say it the way that in my brain works.
I'm gonna just scroll past that so I don't see the very aggravating Syrah one.
Anyway, this book, in case you don't know, is The War of Two Queens. This is back in the original series, the From Blood and Ash series. Yep. Because we went book 1 of Flesh and Fire. Now we're back to big boy, The War of Two Queens. Hopefully you have a bigger or a more contextual understanding of the characters in the background and the lore, for lack of a better.
You stopped at an interesting place that I thought you were gonna say you have something about a cunt, and I was like,
that's no, that is.
I know you like that word, but okay.
Yeah, so we're introduced to a bunch of different characters. You were introduced to, Reaver Butt, and now we see like the older Reaver, and it's like a whole
Yep.
thing, and I love to see that. Um,
Uh,
what?
go ahead.
What? I just said Reaver Butt.
No, I was just gonna go ahead. Just talk. Just talk. Your
Okay.
voice is beautiful. I want to listen to it some more.
Okay. Well, chapter one, something that I noticed, so going right into chapter one of this book, is this is the first book where we're getting Castile's point of view, and that's how this
Yes.
starts off. And it's interesting because typically books that have different points of view, like, not confuse me, but I'm just like
It
used to
becomes a
seeing it
lot.
through one. Yeah, it can overwhelm you, but I think that Jennifer did a really good job kind of balancing that just because they're obviously separated. Castile offered himself up to save Poppy, and
Hmm.
well,
He's captured right now with lovely mommy bitch, as I call her in the show notes later on.
oh, well, I just call her is bitch, so together.
I switched
Buddy.
between those, yeah.
Um, this first chapter really, at least, well, the whole series really, but this first chapter really illustrates, I think, the strength of their relationship and the lengths that both of them will go for each other. And we see that
Mhm.
later on in the book as well. But even Castile in this first chapter says, I would spend an eternity taking these bites if that meant she was safe, that it wasn't her in the cell, that she wasn't the one in pain. Please note, Poppy always refers to him as he in italicized, and now he's doing the same thing for her with italicized she. I mean, I know that's a Jennifer writing thing, but like we're just
Yeah.
gonna go with it. Um, and he is restrained. Is that the word I want to use? Restrained. We're gonna say restrained by bands of
Not in a fun way.
Shadowstone. Not in a fun. That's why I was like, is restrained like the word I want to use? Because I just
He's a
don't
little tied up, but not the way we usually like.
exactly. And this book also starts 13 days into his capture, which is an interesting, I mean, I think this is just like a random number. I don't necessarily think there's any
You a
significance.
Taylor Swift fan?
I was just about to say, unless she's a Taylor Swift fan, then like maybe. Um, but we're 13 days into his capture, and he's losing a lot of blood, which,
Hmm.
if you already know, based off of previous books, that's not a good thing.
Nope.
Um, so 13 days had passed since the first time the handmaidens swarmed this cell, dressed in black and as quiet as a tomb. They came once a day to cut into my flesh, ew, siphoning my blood as if I were a damn barrel of fine wine. I mean, you are Cass, but
Absolutely, yes. We like
but
to
like
keep
it
that wine
needs
in you.
correct. And then he also learns that not all of Isbitch's handmaidens are revenants, which as we go into the book, I don't necessarily think this is super important. I just think it's important to note that the Revenant handmaiden that we do see is important.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of just the point I wanted to get across.
I like his method of finding out that they're not all revenants. Just go killing them. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the whole how she italicized. Only one of them actually stayed dead though. Like, it's fine. No big deal. Um, he's
It's important.
angry.
That's important.
Only one, but only one. Kind of important, let's be honest. What is he really gonna do? He's tied up, literally.
Even he's like, I don't know how that's gonna help me, but here we are.
Um, these show notes are off the rails also. So I'm going to reference her as Millicent or Millie because at this point we don't we don't know a lot, but it's just easier instead of saying handmaiden 10,000 times.
The
Yeah.
handmaiden. We learned
Um,
her name later on, so let's just give her respect and use her name.
something like that. Which I actually really like the name Millicent. If there are any One Tree Hill fans, that was the first thing I thought of when I read this book, but that's besides the point. Um,
You know what I think when I think of Millicent? In my head, I keep saying Maleficent.
if the shoe fits. I don't think the shoe fits, but like if the
I
shoe
could see
fits,
characteristics, I
maybe.
guess.
I think that's a stretch, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The main thing about Millie right now is she is weird. She is weird as heck. Um, she just has some weird tendencies, and like it's unclear if she's just mentally unstable or like
I mean, she
or,
works for
or
the Blood Queen. Like,
I
that
mean,
make me mentally
correct.
unstable.
That's also very true. So she has facial paint, so you can't really see any distinguishing features. Um, and something that I wrote down is that I really don't understand the significance with the color white. Like purity, I'm assuming some sort of
Mm,
like I know that each color symbolizes something like in real life, like the greater scheme
right.
of things. Um, I just don't understand. White
I
gets
mean,
dirty and there's a lot of murdering happening.
for Sarah and Poppy being the chosen and wearing white, I get it. It's like
Sierra.
purity, we're blessed. Oh, don't you start. Oh, don't you stop. Anyways, I could see for them, it's like, yeah, blessed. Blessed, chosen, all that stuff. I don't get why she's wearing white though. She ain't pure.
Okay, but listen, she's wearing white, but it's also skin tight and nearly transparent. Honey, what's the point? Please advise. What is
That's
the point?
why my note says mommy is a hoe. So
Well, you
ain't
ain't wrong about
wrong.
that. Um, and we are introduced to a golden as the book, I am quoting this from the book, one golden motherfucker who genuinely lives up to his name. God, I hate him so much. Anyway, his eyes were a blue so pale they appeared nearly leached of all color. Eyes like some of the handmaidens. Another rev, I bet.
You bet correct.
He is a motherfucker. That's all I
I
gotta say.
still I get the golden being like his skin is like golden tone, like out in the sun, stuff like that. I still can't get the golden people from Guardians of the Galaxy out of my mind. That is what
I
he
thought
is.
I was just about to say that same exact thing. I
Yeah.
was like, that's all I see.
Yeah.
Clearly, like with a bigger brain than them, but like,
Yeah. He
yeah,
sparkles. He's gold. That's what he
but
is.
it's not Twilight. You know what I mean? Like, it's
No,
not
no,
giving
no, no.
Twilight. It's definitely giving gold people from Guardians of the Galaxy, who's I
Yes.
can't remember what their thing was
Me
called.
neither. I hated them though, so it fits.
Um, then they have a back and forth about being stinky boys. It's or stinky, just period, being stinky. And Cass is so funny. Um, he said, I can clean up you can't wash that stench or feed that away. That shit is inside of you. And I think that it's so funny he says shit when it's like you smell bad, but also shit like you're a piece of trash. Anyway,
Good job.
listen. Listen. Then we have some highlights about like is bitch's demented way of
Oh,
loving Poppy. I was a mother to her. She would have no memory of it as she was just a tiny babe then, perfect and lovely in every way. I slept and woke with her beside me every day until I knew I could no longer take that risk. And I was a mother to her when she thought I was only her queen, tending to her wounds when she was so gravely injured. I would have given anything to have prevented that. I was like, words are so hard.
it's a
I
pronunciation guide, yeah.
listen. I I don't want to say like I see where she's coming from because she is crazy and demented, but
Understatement.
in her mentally screwed up brain, and we see this really toward the end of the book, which we'll get into obviously, but
Yeah.
she love is not the word I would use, but like whatever. I can see where she's coming from as I mean, I'm not a parent, but like as like knowing parents, you included, like I can see how you would want the best for your kid, whatever.
Oh, of course.
However, better ways to go about doing this. And Cass brings up how Tierman routinely abused her and he let others do the same, and she flinches. Like you can see there is some level of care. But I think she's too blinded by her overarching goal in life, quote unquote, that she like that love is just demented. Like I don't know how else that like I don't the
Here
murdering
is
is just not
where
it.
here's where as a parent I disagree with her. It's like you don't want your kids to have to go through pain, but I wouldn't do that. I would have done anything to stop her from experiencing it because I know that my kids have to experience pain and they have to learn. And that's the only way they're going to grow and learn. It's hard. It's really hard to watch your kids make decisions that you're like, "Hey, that's probably not the best," and they do it anyways. My son. Um but it's that
True.
they have to sometimes experience that to say, "Hey, I did that. That wasn't the best." But I'm not going to go and cut people they love into pieces and send it to them to teach them that lesson. So yeah, you want what's best for them, but there's always a choice. Her mentality is the same in this book as it was before of you're pushing me to do this. You're my
Placing
kids make me
blame.
crazy, but I know part of that is on me too and my patience level. Like they're not making me act this way. They're not helping it, but I still have a choice on how I handle it. She's just not taking responsibility for any of that. So she ain't winning any parenting awards on my end.
I don't think she's winning awards on anybody's end, but like maybe, I mean, everyone needs to love a good villain, so maybe. Actually, funny thing that I just said that, I was thinking like out of all the villains in this book series, I was like, who would I actually like? You know, we all love a villain every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think of which one I would like gravitate to the most. I think I'm still simmering on that. Um, like it wouldn't be a lord or any of the dukes. Like those are just assholes, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I have like a thought, but I have to share it offline because it would be a low-key spoiler.
that's fair. Part of me wonders if she's the Umbridge of the story. Like she's not in the end the only villain, but she's one that we love to hate and love to bitch on.
Yeah, she also has that aggressive like personality. Like we'll see in other storylines. Like obviously the villains are terrible people, but like
Mm-hmm.
she definitely exudes Umbridge for sure, I think,
Yeah.
compared to
In
the
the
rest of
I have the
everything.
power. I get to control things.
Mhm.
You it's not me doing it. You're deciding to make me do this, so I have to teach you a lesson. It's just it's up it's there's your we got Guardians of the Galaxy, we've got Harry Potter. See, we got it all here. But yeah.
Honestly. And then the chapter ends or kind of wraps up with Cass figuring out that she's a demis, or as they define, a false god, which is kind of bleh. That's all I have to say about that. It's a poor imitation of the real thing, hell bent on destroying the lives of the desperate, which she says is a rather offensive assumption, but I mean, it's not wrong. A demis is not born but made when a god commits the forbidden act of ascending a mortal who is not chosen. I mean, listen, someone was ascended, and I'm not gonna say who, but someone was ascended. She didn't turn into a demis, though. I wonder if I'm saying that wrong too. Now I'm
I
subjecting
already was
myself.
thinking that and I was like, that's not in the thing. So part of me is not gonna go look it up because I'm already so mad.
Ugh.
Yes,
Anyway,
it's correct. Everything we're saying is correct.
um, and uh, Isbitch shows Cass the message that Poppy sent, which is King
Mm.
Halara's head, And I literally just put it in the notes. I was like, LOL, Cass is demented for being turned on by her decapitating a man. But like, are we
We love him
surprised at
for
all?
it. No,
Like, we're just not
we love our
surprised.
cast.
And then Bitch finds out that Malik is alive, and she essentially is retaliating against Poppy and uses Callum to send a new message that neither of us like, to be honest with you. But we don't find out what that present is
Not
yet.
yet.
Oh,
It's a great present. Who doesn't love getting a present?
from your bitch of a mom? No, thank you.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2 is in Poppy's point of view, and we are now 23 days into Cass's capture. They are in Massine.
I say Messine, so
I say Massine too, but everything, and now I'm just
everything we say is correct.
Okay. And there's something to note about the environment in the trees. Crude circles made of sticks or bones, vaguely resembling the royal crest of the blood crown, except that the line was at a slant diagonal as it pierced the center of the circle. Speaking of, I love the royal crest. Anyway, that's neither here nor
See,
there.
in this one though, it's a circle, whereas in the prequel, it's a crown. So I wonder what happened over the ages to change that.
They got lazy and they just decided to.
Sure.
In my head, they got lazy and well, because a lot of their history got erased. So the things
Yeah.
that I wonder if that's just a thing over time that just kind of gets altered and lost in translation.
Yeah.
Then we're back to Poppy referring to Cass as he. It takes her a little bit to even say Castile or to say Cass, and other people say it before her, and she's really struggling right now, obviously.
Yeah.
And they this is absolutely disgusting, but they is this on the rise?
The gates.
The gates, yes. So men and women stripped bare, impaled at the wrists and feet to Mazine's iron and limestone gates, their bodies displayed for any to look upon. Their faces, dizziness rushed me. Their faces weren't bare. They were all shrouded in the same veil I had been forced to wear, held in place by gold chains gleaming dully in the moonlight. Dully. Listen, now English is not my first language.
Now we're questioning everything we say.
And these are on the gates, mind you, and it's a very, in this book, it's a lot of, or it's not a lot, it's just like a in spite of.
Yeah.
Like I don't like doing things in spite of people, but here we are. Perfect example happening right here. And she gets
feel
pissed.
I feel like it shows when Kieran and the others are so like have the waves of horror that she talks about. They've seen some really messed up shit in their long lives. But to see like the children being used this way,
I also feel like maybe I'm just projecting a little bit, but I feel like also with Poppy and her like empathic abilities, they obviously know who she is as a person now. So it's like compounded with like her feelings and like her disgust and like her horror and distaste
I
for the
think
whole
it's
situation.
definitely I think it's a like a melting pot of emotions because they can sense her strong emotions and this would elicit strong emotions. So I think it's just the
Correct.
swirling of it all together.
Yeah, that's what I think too. And they hold on, I want to see where this is. She has been practicing with the primal notum. Clearly I didn't study before. And so she's had the most success with Kieran and Delano as the book goes on. Like clearly she uses it with others, and I actually really like the progression and like the evolution of her being able to talk to the Wolven, but I just love the
Yeah.
Wolven. So here we are. Um I they're getting ready to kind of take this over and take over Messine.
Mhm.
Yeah, whatever. And Kieran isn't wearing armor, right? Not
No,
Niall
none of the
and
Wolven are.
Poppy are.
Yeah.
And I just want to point this out. So there's a point in this chapter where she says, Victor had taught me that ages ago, that you could never consider the life of another when they held a sword pointed at your throat. And there was no sword at my throat now, but there were things much worse held to the throats of those inside the rise. One, I love that she, no matter how much time goes by, she keeps referencing Victor. Two, I think there's so many like little blurbs from this book and all the books that are so you can translate them into your own life.
Oh yeah.
And it also shows how I don't, is it this? No, it's a book I just read. It was like choose empathy for people. I can't remember what book I just read. I'll have to look it up, but there was like a quote that was just like, if you can choose anything, like choose empathy kind of thing. It was an Abby Jimenez book I read. Anyway, very impactful. So this reminds me of that little line a lot. And that's all I wanted to say on that. And Poppy, obviously they're getting ready to fight or whatever, and she is still to this day or this time, she is annoyed that she has mortal senses. Like everyone has cool, can hear, can see, can do, she smell. She's just
Hmm.
basic Poppy, but like she's a badass bitch, so really jokes on her coming up later in the book. Um, and the guards in this town are assholes. The dukes in this book
Shocker.
Uh, the dukes in this book are complete and utter pieces of shit per my notes. And Poppy always goes first. She has always advocated like I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And she realizes she's a badass bitch, so she's gonna be like, I'm gonna go first because I'm invincible. Well, not invincible, but you know, she's close. Um And even Kieran goes, one of these days you will realize you're a queen. And Emil goes, not likely.
uh, yeah,
Uh,
and there was actually a point where like Vanetta and Delano like got ahead of her to go down the stairs before she could, and she's like, "Why do they do that?" And he's like, "Because you're a queen." And she's like, and Emil's like, "You keep telling her that."
it's like she understands the magnitude of her position, but she just doesn't give a shit. And I think that
No,
that's the
she would
funniest
rather
part.
her get hurt than ever put anyone that she loves at risk.
Correct. And um they're fighting, and obviously Poppy is, helping them murder everybody and get through like the assholes that are being assholes. Um And so she makes the claim, I may be the queen, but I'm also a god and therefore harder to kill than any of you. I should go first. And Kieran goes, harder to kill doesn't mean impossible to kill. And the funny part is do we see anything about? There's not a lot, like she can be in a lot of pain and she can drain herself, but I don't think we really ever discuss like her death. Like it's always just a concept that's there that lingers in the background, but like everyone else she's more worried about everyone else dying than herself, which I guess
Yeah.
is a recurring theme in the book in general.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
think part of it is because she's still like, here we are, four books in, and she still doesn't understand yet what she is. Like at the end of the book, she does, obviously, but she's still figuring that out. Like so much is still coming to light. Reaver's not a help in this situation. He could have solved that issue from day one. But
yeah, well, I'm a little salty about little Reaver butt over there, but
yeah, but like so there's still so much guessing going on about her, and I think that makes them all a little uncomfortable of not knowing anything.
And I don't blame her. Reaver, this is the thing, is Reaver could have bridged the gap a long time ago, but I wonder what the trajectory would have been if he had. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's very much like how the fates can't say a lot because of like interfering. I wonder if that's just his convoluted version of that, which,
Right.
knowing Reaver, like why would he care? But also,
And I think a part of him actually thinks they should already know. So he's like, oh, they know. They're just talking about this. And then later he's like, how do you not know that?
exactly. But then the chapter ends with her McMurdering the Duke, and then it ends with, and only then for the first time in 23 days did I feel nothing at all. And then we go into chapter 3.
Woo. 28 days. So we went from 23 to 28. So there's definitely good little jumps happening in between chapters. Which obviously for progression's sake, you gotta do. Yeah. So it's almost a month now since he's been gone, and she's feeling it. That's a tough thing to go through. Like I've been separated from my husband for a good period of time, but never for this kind of reason. So it's a whole different kind of like agony, and like she's literally sitting there just eating eggs and breakfast and all this stuff, and she's so like overwhelmed with her emotions that she's just feeling this ether pulsing inside of her, and it's like making things like shift a little. But she said, if I screamed, if I gave in to all the pain and rage, the sound of desperation and anguish would become wrath and fury, the scream choking me, the power building inside me tasted of death. So homegirl ain't doing too good.
No,
um
which isn't surprising considering the situation and what
right,
she just had to do.
yeah. And she's still just going through the he's and thinking back about everything. um and good old Kieran over here is playing her protector and mama hen and asking like, is that all you're gonna eat? Like, you need to eat more food. And she's like, you're the advisor to the crown, you're not the advisor on what I eat. And he says, I'm doing what you and Cass asked of me, I'm advising you. And she's having a hard time even hearing his name. I like that she has a hard time hearing his name, but she doesn't stop them from saying it. Like, I think
I
that's
don't think
good.
she could. Even like
Mm-mm.
the memory is painful, but like it's not like it says repeatedly throughout the book. He's not dead. She still has the imprint. Like there's still hope. It's just like a yearning, I think, that she's just struggling with.
Yeah. But he goes on to say, you're barely eating, you're barely sleeping, and what just occurred, the glowing, the making the entire building shake, you seem completely unaware of it, and it's happening more often, Poppy. Oh
True.
man. I can't imagine having that much power. Like that's what I think of all this time reading this, is like the things that she does with her power and the showing of it. I can't imagine like, I feel like I daydream so much that I would daydream and something would happen. I'd be like, whoops, that was an accident.
My emotions. I feel my emotions too strongly, I think, for me to be able to reel them in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I agree with. We have 23 Draken under her command. We love that. We love our Draken. They're the best. Um Poppy over here though is a kind of having a hard time with people trying to tell her what to do.
Shocker.
Um she says, why is it when a prince or a king decides to place themselves in danger or chooses to lead armies into war, it's not an issue? But when a queen wishes to do the same, it suddenly becomes a thing they must be advised against. Sounds a bit sexist. Kieran places his glass down. It's not a thing. I tried to stop Cass from doing idiotic, incredibly dangerous acts so many times. It was practically a full time responsibility. Um, and then he goes on to tell her that one of the things he tried to advise him against was Poppy. He tried to stop him from taking her. And so that's a little interesting. Like we see a little background information. Trying to find where in the chapter that is. For some reason, my notes are being weird.
The thing that I like the most about this is that it also shows the growth even with Kieran. Like he says that, but it's also like he recognizes that his view of her wasn't
Right.
accurate. And clearly Cass didn't listen anyway, but like I think that shows growth like with their relationship as well.
Yeah. I like that he goes on to admit that like taking her just it felt insane and it carried a lot of risks for Castile. I like how she said, did one of those risks have to do with the fact that it was wrong to kidnap an innocent person and upend her entire life? And he was just like, can't really say that crossed my mind.
Yeah, Kieran. Shocker.
Right. uh and then they're kind of like, I don't think you mind how he upended your life. And um just I love the growth that you see in their relationship in this book.
Because there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of it between the last book and this book. Their relationship has just like cemented even farther. They don't know what kind of relationship it is, and I'll admit the first time I read this book I was kind of like, where's she going with this? Like what's going on? I'm confused. I've never had this before in a fantasy book. I'm not mad. I just want to know what's going on. So it was fun to see like how their relationship um continued to grow. And then there's the lovely, we get to see some banter between Reaver and
Kieran.
Kieran, which is our
Yeah, which
favorite.
is like the whole book is just mostly that. And even when Castile comes back into the picture, like it is still a prominent thing. And that makes me laugh.
Yeah. Like Kieran looks at Reaver and he says, would you like me to pose for a painting? Then you can gaze upon me even when I'm not around. And she's like, can you not? He's like, he's staring at me. We love them.
We do.
And then Vanetta comes in with who with her? Emil, who is always with her. Uh and she even says that she wasn't sure how like Vanetta felt about Emil kind of following her around, but then she says, but that was until I'd seen her coming out of his chamber in the early morning hours on the day she'd left for Oak Ambler. The soft, sated smile on her face made it utterly unnecessary to probe any deeper into her emotions.
Yeah, well,
We love
we
that.
love them. I love this is another illustration of like supporting characters that have their day in the sun. And in our show notes, I share like a theory I have. And me and Sam have talked about this offline, but it's kind of just like this next book is the end of Cass's and Poppy's story as like main characters. So there's speculation on what direction she can go into, like Jennifer could go into.
There's so
Um,
many.
and I was saying it also could have been like a Vanetta, Emil situation.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends on how this next book ends and the next book after that. But you know, it could happen. I'm just saying.
I think it's very interesting. You put in here Millie and Malik. Sorry, that one's not Malik. Oh, gives you Lucian and Elaine vibes. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
I saw it. I thought it. I saw it, and I was like, I'm writing it down.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna have to think about that. But yeah, Vanetta comes in, but she does not come with good news. She
No.
comes bearing Duke and Duchess, whatever their
Bye-bye.
name is. I'm not trying to pronounce that name. With their answer to, because they sent them a message about saying basically, hey, you know, here's what we want. We want you to surrender, give us the town, like this is our things. And the response came back saying, we agree to nothing.
Shocker.
And jump to chapter 4, 29 days. So this is only a day jump, so nothing too extreme here. We get some more of the creepy ass dream, which we get a lot more. And some people I think would think this is very repetitive, but if you
Mm-hmm.
read them, they change each time. Like the amount of detail she has and like who's involved where gets clearer. Like you can tell this is a memory that is coming back to her in full force now. So it's very interesting to see what changes when they come back up again.
I
Um,
agree.
but she wakes up from her nightmare and it says that Kieran has made a habit of sleeping near me in his woven form, which is why he got very little sleep. I told him more than once that it wasn't necessary, but the last time I brought it up, he said, "This is where I choose to be." And well, that nearly made me cry. He chose to be beside me because he was my friend.
I Something that's like subtle, but I think is really important to kind of just to say is that I think it is so impactful the fact, not only the consent of everything of it all, but like the fact that it is said time and time again how much anything that they do is a choice. Like it's not like they're just following a leader. It's not that they're protecting a leader. It's not that they're being forced to do something because of their titles or their relationship. Like it's
Right.
very much like I'm choosing to be here to do this thing, to put myself on the line, to XYZ thing. And I with Poppy and Kieran's relationship, but it stands for anybody, like Delano, Niall, Vanetta, like all of them. Like
All
you
of
see
them. Yeah.
that in the progression of the book is it's all very much their choice and that they truly care about each other. And even like it goes further past caring about each other. I think you can care deeply for another human being, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll walk through fire for that person. Like
Right.
it signifies such a deep rooted relationship that
Yeah.
I just love.
Like, yes, they have the bond. The Wolven have the bond to her, and she's the queen, but it's not, it's who she is as a person, the things that she has gone through, and the fact that she has proven herself to them many times that she wants to protect them as well. Um, yeah, none of these relationships are superficial at all. And I love that. I love that they're deep and they all care about each other. And I'm sorry, you distracted the crap out of me because I was like looking and all of a sudden I see like moving things on the notes. Sorry. Yes, it's very deep and pure, and we love that. Not Delano. We do love Delano, but this is Kieran. Kieran wakes up and they're kind of talking through the note because he's in his woven form. Um, about like the nightmares and stuff, and he tells her like, "Oh, there's an herb you could take for that," and she's very much against that. She does not want to take anything to make her sleep because she doesn't want to be vulnerable.
Normally.
And yeah, and I don't blame her. Like the way those stuff can make you feel to help you sleep, it's sometimes it makes you feel worse than actually rested and groggy and things like that. And then we learn that she is now taking the herb for contraception because she knows he can't. Uh
Yeah.
which, smart, being proactive on her part. That was not something I would have ever thought of, I don't think.
No.
But like like that was
No.
not
But good on
but
her for being responsible.
exactly, yeah. I mean, having a baby during a wartime probably not the best thing. Um, but she asks Kieran, she says, "Do you dream of him?" And he says, "I don't. And I don't know if that's a blessing or not." And my heart breaks for Kieran. This is the second time he's had to go through his best friend being captured by them.
I
And that's
know.
so rough. So, I mean, I'm glad he doesn't have the restrictions he did last time of feeling what he felt and that he can be proactive in helping get him back. But the PTSD he's probably feeling right now about all this, oh, it
And we
it
see it.
hurts my heart. Yeah. Yeah, it just hurts my heart. But the next day, she can't sleep, so she does what she does when she can't sleep, going back to her old habits as the maiden, getting up and wandering around. She knows Kieran's not going to wake up for a while, so she's going to the library, and she finds some records in the library, and these are very interesting records to say the least, because they're very old and there's some names in them that we should all recognize. Um, she got really confused because she saw words like the right, ascension, chosen, but the excerpt, is that the excerpt that she finds says Princess Kaylee, first daughter of King Sagar and Queen Geneva of Ireland, joined Queen Esmeria of Lasania and her consort Marisol to celebrate the rite and ascension of the chosen, marking the. And then she stops right there and she's like, wait a minute. Like, these are old. And I put in the notes, I said, this is the shit I missed when I don't read this in the suggested reading order. Because when I did my first read through of this book, I did not know about the prequel until after I read A War of Two Queens. So this is stuff that to me, the first time reading, didn't make sense. Like it was, I didn't like, the only thing that like made sense to me was that it showed that the rite and everything happened before the ascended. But these names and stuff meant nothing to me at the
But
time.
now they do.
But now they do. And that's why we have a suggested reading order, because it makes it so impactful when you come back to this.
Correct.
So yeah. She's trying to figure out how that is. And then she hears a noise and there's someone who's with her. And I'm not sure if she's actually alive or not, because everyone thinks she's like a ghost. She's very old. They call her the widow, even though they don't know if she is a widow. She's very creepy. She's been in the castle. And she's looking at these ledgers, and the old lady says that they're older than sin and most kin. But she also says, but not as old as the first mortal birthed from the flesh of a primal and the fire of a draken. Huh, I wonder who did that. Weird. Her name is Vessa. And like, part of me wonders if she comes back up later on, or like who she is, or if like she's just.
Well, the funny part is I was so confused the first time reading because I thought it said Vessis, and I got even more confused. I was like, huh? No. Back
Well,
up,
we have a
rewind.
friend reading who was like, is this Vessis? And we're like, what? And they're like, oh no, her name's Vessa. Like, and that threw me for a loop because then it made me start thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, here we are.
But yeah. But her name's Vessa, and she's asking what she does here, and she says, I serve still. And she says, well, who do you serve? And she says, who else but the true crown of the realm, silly girl. And so she thinks she's referring to the blood crown. Uh,
Love that for us.
And she's not liking being called girl and stuff like that. But she asked her, what is it you wait for? And she says, the one who is blessed, one born from grave misdeed of great and terrible primal power, with blood full of ash and ice. The chosen who will usher in the end, remaking the realms, the harbinger of death and destruction. I wait for you. I wait for death.
Not ominous at all.
No, not one bit. I think she's sweet. We should have her around for tea sometime. And then this lady out of nowhere attacks Poppy with a knife. And I love how Poppy's like, are you serious? She's holding her back. But it's very interesting, the description of her. It says her face was almost nothing more than skin and skull, her cheeks and eyes sunken in, her flesh heavily lined, creased in a ghastly grayish white, lips a bloodless thin line peeled back across stained teeth, and her eyes, they were milky white. I took an involuntary step back. How in the world could she even see me? So this lady's like old, but somehow fast, considering how old she is. And she's calling her the harbinger. And she's like, this is stupid. I don't like this. Kieran comes in and he says this lady with a knife, and he's just like, what's going on in here? Like, no big deal. And then she says, get in here and help me. Oh no, she says, would you like to help me, or do you just want to stand there and watch me get yelled at by an old lady? And he says, is there a third option?
No, there's not.
And Kieran won't go in there. He calls Nail to come in and help him. He says, I'm not getting anywhere near her. She's a Loria, or however you say that. And she says, a what? And he goes, a spirit. I love Kieran. And and they're trying to figure out where to put her, and she says no, she's too old for that. Put her in another room so she can't hurt anyone or herself until we figure out what to do with her. And she's just sweet despite being attacked. She thinks she's just a little deranged old lady. And Kieran's trying to tell her, like, look, usually this would be a death sentence, or at least like throw her out, that kind of thing. And he goes, as your advisor, and she says, you will say, my, what a kind queen our people have. And he says, you are kind, too kind. So yeah, it's very interesting what's going on with her. And she says, it has to be related. Why the gods took the third sons and daughters, I said, staring at the ledgers, and how they can become revenants. And they're talking about the tombs and stuff because Kieran didn't think that the rite and the ascension happened before they ascended either. So now they're like, this all has to be related somehow.
Which is wild, honestly.
Yeah.
But then we go into chapter 5, where we've reached now 30 days since Castile has been captured. One of the things that we see when the chapter starts is Reaver in his mortal form.
Love it.
Something else that happens a lot in this book is Poppy. Well, Castiel also does this, but when something is told, like a prophecy or some sort of like impactful kind of tidbit from someone, like it sits with them and it's repeated throughout randomly, just like train of thought kind of things. Like the chosen who will usher in the end, remaking the in the realm, something that we hear a lot. I
A
just
lot.
wanted to point that out. Because it's always italicized in the books. Anyway, so we see Reaver in his mortal form. She's finally gotten over this whole everyone's naked kind of vibe, but she did take note that Reaver was a blonde, and we love Reaver.
I don't think I imagined him blonde either the first time. I was with her
honestly,
on
I
that.
don't think I did either, but it's fine. And she asks him, like, are the Draken bonded to me? And he's like, yeah, we're bonded to you. I'm perplexed by the fact that you're only now realizing that. Reaver, she is new to this situation. There are so many things you could clear up if you just listened and like responded. I'm just saying. And she goes, but I'm not a primal. And River goes, what you are is not wise.
He
Another
had a moment right
opportunity.
there. It was wide open and he shut it. We
Anyway,
love him. Love him.
then it goes into how like the bond is slightly different. The Draken answer to her will, not like her mind telepathy kind of
Mhm.
thing, like the Wolven do, which was a really interesting. And he also reiterates that like you may be hard to kill, but it's not impossible. That woman may not have succeeded, but others could inflict damage. Very true. She's not unstoppable
Right.
like some people we know. Anyway, a god can kill another, and Shadowstone can also kill a god. Reaver, another situation in which you could have said something, but you
But
did.
you
But you are the first female descendant of the primal of life, which I guess in turn, like you could kind of deduce that she has to be a form of primal, but I guess with her lineage, I guess you can't just assume.
right.
Anyway, in time you
Especially
will
when they
become.
didn't know anything really about primals. They hardly know
That's
things about the gods.
Yeah, well,
Like,
Reaver, hello, perfect opportunity.
oh, I get it. No, I'm justifying like the others. I'm not
No.
justifying Reaver.
Yeah, I know. So she's gonna be more powerful than Iris. And Reaver tells her or tells them that Nyktos woke up when Poppy was born because it was felt, which is very interesting. And once Nyktos woke up and they woke up, they realized that Malik, is this the Malik or is this the Malik? This is Malik. And Iris
If
were
it's
gone
EC, it's
at
Malik.
Malik? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Malik and
Mhm.
Iris were gone, as well as Jade, Nectus's daughter, where I'm not saying Nictas. That's not gonna be a thing that comes out of my
Ugh,
mouth, but that's
I
okay.
hate that worse than the others.
Um, and then Reaver kind of gives background on Iris and Malik, kind of just, the differences between the two, which is very interesting, especially since I think this is kind of just standard in terms of brothers and how that can go.
Right.
And Then they discuss how they had to feed, and she's like coming to this realization that she's going to need to feed. And Reaver tells her that she can feed off of anything but a draken. You cannot feed from a draken. And she's like, why? And he goes, because it would burn the insides out of most, even primals, which even primals, perfect opportunity, dude.
Like that
Anyway,
was, I feel like that was him being like,
yeah, you're a
including you,
primal.
but she doesn't. Oh, I love Reaver, but I want to strangle him in
Yeah.
his blonde head.
And then they discuss about the balance. A lot of the things have a cause and effect. A tipping of the scale is a balance. That he says, even we have weaknesses. The fire we breathe is the essence of the primals. Using it tires us, slows us down. Even the primals had their limitations, weaknesses. Only one is infinite, and Nyctos is that exception.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of tells her, she like keep going back and forth, and Reaver like says that Poppy reminds him of the consort, and that just makes my heart happy. I just
Mm-hmm.
that I reading this book, I can see the traits that Jennifer kind of puts in different places based off of who it is. And I
Yeah.
think she did such a beautiful job, because you're not going to inherit every trait from everyone. Like, it's going to be a
Right.
pick and choose kind of vibe, and I loved what she did, because you see Sarah in this bad at like she's just so outspoken, not hidden, this whole thing, and then you go to Poppy and it's like the complete opposite, but she still has the strength and the
Yeah.
bravery. I don't know.
And the temper.
That mm,
I like Reaver when he's talking about Sarah, how everything about him like softens and how he smiles when he talks about her, especially since looking at the first book, he's young and he's still very hesitant of her. So I love looking at him as a kid, not sure about her, to this where like he's so in awe of her. And
yeah, like
like
they
you could
actually
tell
have
he
a
loves
relationship.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. They're so great. Um, anyway, so then this comes up later in the book, but he says her name is a shadow in the ember, a light in the flame, and the fire in the flesh. I literally just put that together. Anyway, I didn't realize it was all three. I thought it was
Oh, honey, I
just
put
the
that together in the last book when I mentioned
Let's
it.
not talk about it. The primal
Okay.
of life has forbidden us to speak or write her name. And then we're all like, but why? And he goes, you don't understand. To speak her name is to bring the stars from the skies and topple the mountains into the sea. And well, we find out what that means later on in the book. And they're also talking about Poppy going through the culling, and he's like, you haven't finished it. And Poppy's like, what do you mean? Like, how do you know? And
Mm-hmm.
Reaver goes, I would feel it. And I was like, oh, okay. And he even makes a comment like, you don't know much about yourself, do you? And I'm just like, bruh, how is she supposed to know anything?
How about you fill her in?
Honestly. And then they get the present.
Hmm.
And the person who delivers
Present
it says
time.
that you have to use primal magic or blood magic to open it.
Because it was
Um,
sealed with primal magic.
yeah, and Perry kind of gives her some background, and she's all like, well, how do you know about that? And my dad, so Lord Sven is the realist, and so is Perry. So,
Great family.
um,
Love them all.
in the chapter, the chapter ends with the wedding band made in Spessa's end shown a lustrous gold matching the one I wore. Always and forever, the same message was inscribed on both. Neither of us had removed our rings since the ceremony, and this one hadn't been now either, for it remained on the finger I had placed it on. And I ended the notes with, I hate this bitch, disrespectfully.
Agreed.
So going into chapter 6 is still her reaction to this present, quote unquote, this message. And Kieran smacks a hand down on the lid, and he's just like everyone's in shock, and it burns an image into her brain. Like, she's never gonna not see it.
Yeah.
Um, and she's pissed. And Kieran, of course, is the voice of reason, and He's like, "This is why we have plans, but if you do this," like, she's, like, using the
It's gonna
ether, she
ruin
just wants to blow
everything.
yeah, she wants to blow everybody up, essentially. "Those who you don't kill will be terrified of you, of all of us. If they even saw you like this now, they would never see you as anything else. What you're feeling is you, but what you want to do isn't. It's her. It's something the Blood Queen would do. It's something she'd want you to do, but you are not her." And I think that him being able to ground her, obviously in a different way than Cass, but still
Yeah.
very similarly, is such a powerful like you said earlier, like, their relationship really evolves, and, like, you don't necessarily know the trajectory of where it's going, but you
Hmm.
still understand the magnitude, and
Yeah.
I just love it.
It's very easy to believe at this point there's only two people I think that could ever have the potential to get through to her, and that's Cass or Kieran.
100%. And, she's just having this whole come to Jesus moment of like, why did he fucking do this? Like, why did Cass sacrifice himself? And Karen's just like, you know the answers to that. Um, and um she comes to the whole saying his name and just know it like just knowing his love and knowing that he's the other half and a part of her. Um, she hadn't spoken his name. She even recognizes that she hasn't said his name and she
Mhm.
finally like says his name. And then she has the other she tells Kieran to, like, get rid of this, and he's like, "I'm gonna have it burned," and she was like, "Okay, but you don't do it, like, neither of us need to have that kind of vibe,"
Yeah.
and I respect her for it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and this is a pivotal point, I think, in my opinion, in this chapter, but also in the book, is that she recognizes the plans that they have, but she even says out loud she voices how Cass is more important to her, which she feels guilty about, but she also like strike it's about balance again. It's like she clearly
Yeah.
understands the magnitude of their plans, but she's also like, this is the love of my fucking life, and I would burn the realms for him.
Yeah.
And I just think that
I
that's
think it's almost the
important.
thing of like, I know what's important, but I also know me, and I cannot serve the people and this war properly until he is free, because that her mind's not going to be anywhere else except there.
Exactly. Exactly. And um essentially then they have their plans, but after their next plans, like, she's like, "I'm going to Carcedonia, I'm getting my mans," and
Mhm.
Kieran's all like, "I'm coming with you," and she's all like, "Nah, bitch, you need to stay here." And so she didn't realize that she could assign a crown regent that would kind of speak on behalf of the crown, kind of take over as, like, a placement, um, and temporarily act on your behalf is really what that
Yeah.
is.
And they have to be followed as if they were her.
Correct. So she is still adamant about Kieran not going, and Kieran goes, "What he means to me has nothing to do with a damn bond. I need to go as badly as you do, and he needs me there just as badly as he needs you." And she like comes to this realization that like Cass does need Kieran, and then he like gives a background about like don't forget what he means to me. Like I've known him his whole life. Like he was there like the first time he was captured and just had to deal with that. Um And then they have another conversation about how Poppy needs to feed, and Kieran says, "I know you don't want to feed off of anyone but Cass, and I know that feedings can get intense, but you'll be safe with me, and you know damn well that Cass wouldn't want you feeding off of anyone but me." And, well, we all knew that that was gonna be a thing because, well, besties. Kieran's, like, asking who is gonna be the regent, and Poppy says, "Vanetta, I would make Vanetta the crown regent," and he says, "Good choice." And honestly,
We love
slay of a
Netta. So
choice.
yep. She's a
So
boss. She's a boss in her own right. Like she ain't gonna take shit from anyone, so it's a perfect choice.
exactly. And so then they're talking about if Kieran knows how to get to Carcedonia and going through mines, and they've finalized their plans, and this is what they're doing. Anyway, wow, wild. And then chapter 7 goes back into Castile's point of view. Um, he starts thinking about Poppy, and that gets him a little excited. And
A little.
I put in the notes, I was like, "You're literally in a shit situation. Please stop getting horny." And Millicent comes in and she notices that his hand's being infected, and she makes a comment about how she like made a promise to somebody to like kind of, we don't really know the background on that.
Mhm.
And I made a note of Cass noticing Millie's laugh and the familiarity of her sharing like where Malik is and her concern for his life. Like
Yeah.
you see the little subtleties there. Um, and then she starts spitting out a bunch of, weird truths, like a god born immortal carrying the blood of the primal of life and the primal of death upon ascension was foretold. Or so they say, and they say a lot. Either way, she broke those primal wards when she ascended into her godhood, talking about Poppy. Um, uh, and then continues, but you don't really know her. I doubt she even knows herself. She carries the blood of the primal of life and the primal of death. I know she knows she's descended from Nyctos. If you think that Granddaddy is the true primal of life and the true primal of death, then you know nothing. I will say, they've known Millie for like 5 minutes and she's said more than Reaver. I'm
And
just
and I think this was a big like foreshadow here. She didn't say her granddaddy or something.
no,
She just said granddaddy Nyctos.
exactly.
Like,
Which honestly, he might if he wasn't like dying Loki, like he probably would have picked that
right.
up. But
I will
interesting.
give him a pass because his situation is shit. Reaver don't get a pass.
No, he does not. And like Cass wants to know more, and she's just like, I'm not that bored to explain all of this to you. Um, and his POV ends with Millie saying, uh, the Blood Queen may not be that powerful, but she knew how to bring to life something that was. And no, and I put this together after, but they don't really understand the magnitude of Collis. Like, and I
Mm-mm.
guess we don't either, but like we really don't know until the end of the book.
Yeah.
And that's wild. And then we move into Poppy's POV. Um,
Bye-bye.
yeah, and she another one of those things that repeats is all that you and those who follow will find here is death, and that's just something that she sits with. And she notices the card that is bitch put with the quote unquote gift. Another instance of mother saying you left me no choice, which is a crock of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Netta and Poppy, I think this is so cute how Netta and Poppy have this like bonding moment talking about
Mm-hmm.
Ian, and how the story of Satoria and the Cliffs of Sorrow come back up in this. Like I think
Yeah.
that it shows that clearly Netta and Ian had real conversations, but also it kind of gives Poppy some sort of like reconnect to him. Not that she needs that, but like
Right.
it brings it full circle, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
It just confirms to her like who he was. He wasn't an ascended in the true nature of the ascended. What I want to know about Ian is how he knows all these stories that he like she says he would make up these tales even when he was a kid, but the
But
more
how
we
would he know?
learn, the more we realize these aren't just like little fables, they're actually things that have happened. And I just want to know if that will get brought up later on, like how he knew all that.
I wonder if Coralina, maybe they were bedtime stories that Coralina and Leopold would tell him because he was
Maybe.
older. But like that,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that would be the only way, but like maybe not. Or maybe someone like mind melded with him and gave him knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just that's always been very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, then
And
we chapter
then
8.
chapter 8. Holy crap. Uh we have a nice little dream that's not a dream with our beloved couple.
Mm-hmm.
But because they think it's a dream, they're very quick to get into the the fun time, the little tango that they like to do very often. But they're both realizing that this feels very real. Like it
Yep.
doesn't feel like a dream. Um, and even like Castile, because she thinks she's dreaming, but Castile says, "Did my needs somehow conjure you into reality? I don't know. I can't think beyond this, beyond the way you feel. And so it's kind of like, something's going on. And they're continuing what they're doing, still thinking like something's weird. But then right when they're like right into it, it starts to get cold, and they start to hear things that aren't actually there, and they're realizing the dream's coming to an end. And Cass kind of like is getting, he's realizing what's going on. He says like heartmates, and she's like, what? And then he says, find me again, find me, I'll be waiting here always. And
And
then she wakes
forever.
up. And it's funny because she wakes up Kieran, and he's like, oh, so you had a sex dream? Like there's nothing weird about that, like whatever. And she's like, what? But she has him like smell her hair, which, let's be honest, he was like, there's a first time for everything. um and he also knew it was a sex dream because, woven in their senses.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, why are we even talking about sex dreams when you're sitting beside me naked? And he's like, does my nudity bother you, mi Eliesa? And she's like, it felt different, not bad or wrong. And I'm like, that's right, girl. Anyways, he sniffs her hair, and he realized it smells like Castile. He could smell Castile on her, even though she hasn't been around him in over a month at this point. And he could smell the lilacs too. And she brings up heartmates, and that's remember when he remembers that his father told him that heartmates could walk in each other's dreams. They called it soul walking. Um, it's very,
Valen tells her that it's soul walking, like the official
yeah,
term.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just think it's like walking in each other's dreams. Um, and then big sigh.
Yeah, that whole storm situation with
Yeah,
the
the storm
lightning and the
comes,
thunder.
and there's thunder, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And there's lightning, and the Draken get caught in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that like horror swelled as the Draken fell, wings limp and bodies twisting in the wind, slamming into the pines, tense one after another, after another, after another. And that's such a like heart-wrenching thought right there. That they lost such powerful beings so quickly to this random storm that happened. And she comes up to the Draken, and she's wanting to revive him. And that's when Reaver tells her that you can't. You can heal, but once the soul parts a being of two worlds, you cannot restore life. Only the primal of life can restore life to any being of two worlds. And that's
Yeah.
like that's kind of scary, because the Wolven are of two worlds. But she realizes like what's going on, and she remembers Vesa being like, I wait for you, I wait for death. And she goes back in there. Perry tells her this is primal magic that's happening. She calls her the Harbinger. She says, you were told when you entered this manor, queen with a crown of gold, that all you and those who follow will find here is death. The reddish black smoke spun faster, spreading. You will not harness the fire of the gods. You will win no war. And Poppy's mad. And she says, because she's like, I'm still serving. And she says, you served and death has come for you.
Best
And
of
I'm just
you,
like,
bitch.
oh, yeah. And so she's dead, like the big dead. And we find out at the beginning of the next chapter that she smells of death. And they don't mean just like because she is now dead. Reaver says she smells of the death. And he said he smelled it when they first got there, but it was never strong until that night. And he says that was the essence of the primal of death, his stench, oily, dark, suffocating. The primal of death, man. Oh, and I like how they're like, you mean rain? And he's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And he says, he's like, no, I know rain, like that's not it. Um, he says, Nyctos was never the true primal of death. There was another before him. His name was Colus.
Bitch.
Interesting. And then they get the background on kind of Colus and some of the things we learn in the first book. And we learned that they erased history. And Vanetta points out something solid. She says, I cannot be the only one who's sitting here thinking that the name Colus is awfully similar to Solus, which is the name of their realm at this moment. Uh, but we learn. Oh gosh, my eye went blurry. They get the history and they said that he's been dealt with. He was entombed. There's a lot of entombing going on in these books. And they said the only thing that could release him is the primal of life. That would never happen. They were the kind of enemies that go beyond blood and bone. Yeah, they do. um, and I like how Reaver says, holy shit, I should have caught on to this. Admittedly, I don't always pay attention. You all talk a lot and do so in circles.
Mood.
And it's like, yes, but imagine the clarity if you talked to them and paid attention. But yes, I agree. It's a mood. And he said, like, oh, you talk about the right, they took third sons and daughters. And they're like, yeah. And he said, well, the revenants are Colus's pet project, which is not something we knew yet. Like, we knew who Colus was, but we haven't really heard of revenants yet in the other series.
Why not?
Mm-mm.
Interesting. Okay. Thought we did.
Yeah. Nope. Like, they talked about revenants, I believe, but I don't think they knew Colus was making
No,
revenants.
I don't think, yeah, no, I don't think we
Yeah.
knew the background of them, but I think we knew of
Yeah. We knew
revenants,
of
period.
them, but not like how they were being made.
Wild.
They said he's his pet project, and it goes on to tell us that the third sons and daughters carry embers of ether in them. From ethos, the first primal of life, also known as your great grandfather. And her eyes go wide, and he says, "What? Did you think Nyctos hatched from an egg?" Where have we heard that before? He wasn't. He was not hatched from an egg. But Colus took those third sons and daughters and made them into something neither dead nor alive, something else entirely. Entirely. It was his essence, his magic, as your friend would say. He nodded to Perry. I was young. I was young then when all this came to a head, when what Colus had done was discovered and the war unfolded. I was hidden among the other younglings. He was dealt with, but now someone has learned how to harness his essence. And they figure it has to be Malik. Like, it's the only way that they could know because he came from Elysium. Like, obviously he would know of Colus and everything that's going on. Um and he says for him to share such secret is a betrayal of the highest order, for he has given this blood queen the power to kill my brethren, just like she most likely killed Jade.
Rude.
Or Jay. Um It says the fire of the gods isn't just talking about the fire we breathe. They're talking about making the um what is it? Oh, no, they're talking about the fire. Like, it's not just what they breathe, it's their essence. It's in their blood. Not even a revenant is immune to that. All the blood queen we need to is all the blood, oh, my mouth. All the blood queen would need is a drop of the Draken's blood, no matter how old it is, to kill a revenant. That's some powerful blood. And then he says she's a far more dangerous foe than I think anyone has realized. And that's kind of a thing. But we find out they lost 16 Draken. They only had what, 23?
Mm-hmm.
So they lost over half of them, which is just really gut wrenching. And she's thinking a lot about like the fact that she cannot bring back people of two worlds, and that means she can't bring the Wolven back. And so now she's kind of starting to think about the joining and how that might be her only way to save Kieran.
In case of an emergency.
Yeah.
Which leads us to chapter 10, where everyone is going to congregate to talk about their plans. And Vanetta and Kieran are just like, you need to wear your crown. And Poppy's like, but I don't need to wear a crown for them to remember I'm a queen. And Kieran's just like, there will be generals here you've never interacted with before. For many of them, this will be the first time they've been in your presence outside of the coronation. So, whatever. Unfortunately, she puts on the crown.
Makes me think of having to get my kids dressed. And I'm like, you gotta wear clothes in public. And they're like, but I don't want to.
I mean, that's fair. And so then they're going to meet with Valen and everyone. And Valen was the first to enter. And there's a Wolven there whose name is Lizeth Damron. The general between her and Sven, which is Perry's dad, is Odell Sir. We're gonna sure, I don't know.
Fire.
And then there's another one standing with Alard, which is Lord Murin, a changeling. So then they're discussing Oak Ambler plans, and the generals are being assholes and kind of just trying to poke holes in her plans, like, I was unaware of this, and you
Stupid
are...
Miriam. He's like, I didn't know this. Like, I didn't have a part of this. It's like, of course you didn't. They don't trust you.
She's the queen. She can do what she wants. And she, essentially, she goes and puts them in their place because the lords and the generals were kind of just saying, like, we took care of this just fine. And Valen goes, well, Poppy goes, our previous methods may have been the generals go, our previous methods may have been brutal, but they were effective. And Poppy goes, were they though? And then Valen lifts his brows and says, considering where we stand today, the answer would be no. We retreated, we didn't win. And Poppy says, we may need many things, but we are not conquerors. We are not takers. We will use that power and influence we have to destroy the blood crown and free your king. We need to live side by side in peace with the people of Solace when this is finished. That will never happen if we prove what the Ascended have claimed about us to be true by leaving them defenseless and burning down their homes in the process. And then, is it Lord General? Whatever. Bitch ass says, that, like, you're acting too mortal. Like, this isn't, you need to, like, wise up, kind of. And she goes, showing concern and empathy for the mortals doesn't mean I have no concern for my people. Thinking of their future means I'm thinking of our future, for they will be intertwined whether wanted or not. It is the only successful path forward, as we will not retreat beyond the Skotos Mountains. This war will be the last one. And she says, I was born with the flesh and fire of the primal god in my blood. Make no mistake, with each passing day, I feel less like a mortal than I did the day before. And honestly, like, pop off, Poppy girl. Because, like, yeah, she was born mortal, but she is not, like, that's not who she is. She has clearly gone through an evolution, and he needs to understand. She says, I am not mortal, neither am I Atlantean. I am a god, and I will not choose between the mortals and the Atlanteans when I can choose both. And she says, I want your support because what we do at Oak Ambler will set the tone for what is to come. How we treat the mortals and the Ascended who agree to our demands will be spoken in of other cities and heard. They will aid us long after the war is finished. It will show that our intentions are good in case our intentions have to change. So then they're going to part 2 of the plan, and Emil goes, we might as well all get back on our knees because you're not going to like this either. And then she's going to go full god on this again. And then he says, like, this is a new part of the plan that I don't agree with. And she shares that once Oak Ambler is secured, she's going to leave for Carcedonia with a small group. And that she's going to bring Cass back. and Valen and Aelard are like, excuse me? And she's just like, you will not be without leadership. Vanetta will be assuming the role. And Valen goes, I don't give a damn about leadership right now. It's you that I'm concerned about. You are the queen, but you are also my daughter-in-law.
Oh, I love that. I love those reassurings, like, again, of like, it's not you or your power, it's like what you mean to my son and to us. Like, that acceptance is so powerful in itself.
And then she goes all assertive queen. Um, and she's just like, at noon tomorrow, we will take Oak Gambler, and then I will leave for Carcedonia while the Atlantean armies continue on as planned. My mind won't be changed. And essentially she doesn't want Valen to go, and she says, as your queen, I forbid it. So,
Slay.
she's popping off, being a slay. And then that goes into chapter 11, Castiel's point of view once again. And a cloaked figure comes into the room. The cloak was black and long, more like a shroud, and the hood was situated to the face so the face was nothing but darkness, much like the one I'd worn in solace when I hadn't wanted to be seen, the one that had given me the moniker of the Dark One. And so it's Malik. Malik, sorry, my brain had to think if that's the right pronunciation. Malik comes in and they're going back and forth. It's like, you're a fucking piece of shit because you've been like living your best life this entire time, and we've been trying to save you essentially. And Malik helps Castile with his finger infection, which he must have gotten word from Millie, in case y'all didn't put that together. And so they're talking about, like, how did Malik asks Castile, like, how does it feel when you learn that they lied to us about who Queen Ileana was? And, like, it's just, they go back and forth, like, trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong, like the reasoning behind all their
It's a
stuff.
very awkward reunion.
Yeah. And even Castile goes, or Malik goes, like, you've been living like your life or whatever, and Castile goes, living, I spent those years trying to find a way to free you, not just me, Kieran, Delano, and Niall, countless others, many who gave their fucking lives to bring you home. Good men and women you don't even know gave everything to free you, and this whole time you were a willing pet. Unholy fury swamped me as he dropped the cloth and pulled out some fresh gauze, unfazed by my words. And then he says, do you even wonder what happened to Preela? And Malik went rigid, his pupils dilating. I saw it. God's damn, I saw the reaction. If I'd blinked, I might have missed it. A flinch. And Malik says, she died. That muscle below his temple ticked even faster, but not before she made it all the way to Carcedonia. I don't even know how she managed it, but Preela made it all the way here just to be captured. The beast who's currently missing a head, thanks to your wife, killed her. Not quickly, not before he had his fun, not before many, many others had their fun. He made 7 woven daggers out of her bones. I found 6 of them, and I know exactly where the 7th one is. I couldn't focus on the possibility that Poppy's dagger had been crafted from Preela's bones. It was the answer to my question, what had broken him? And I think this is such a pivotal point, because for you to witness that or to know of that and still stick around, like, imagine being that shattered. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Um, and um then Malik, like, alludes to Poppy knowing him, but not super, like, nothing super specific. And Cass is like, what does that mean? And Malik goes, you'll understand soon enough. I have a feeling you will be reunited with your queen sooner rather than later.
Do-do-do-do.
Ominous. So then we go back
Chapter
into
12.
chapter 12.
Yes. We're back in Poppy's point of view. And how ironic that they're talking about these woven daggers, and chapter 12 starts with running my fingers over the cool handle crafted from woven bone. I'm like, subtle, Jennifer, very subtle.
This is subtle.
Very subtle, back into that. And she remembers when Victor gave it to her, saying, like, this weapon is as unique as you, take care of it and she'll return the favor. She will return the favor. Like, I get it. People give objects like
I didn't even put that
pronouns,
together. So you just said that.
but just hearing, I didn't either till I just read that. Honestly, I'm like, I know it's common to give like, oh, this is my car. I love her, things like that. But just knowing what you know now to hear that, take good care of it and she'll return the favor.
No, her death wasn't in vain completely.
Oh, yeah. Uh, it's yeah. Um, and she's still remembering being around Victor, and she remembers asking him once how he could be surrounded by death but remain untouched by it. And the answer he gave her, she didn't understand at first. He said, I'm not untouched by it. Death is death. Killing is killing, Poppy, no matter how justified it is. Every death leaves a mark behind, but I do not expect anyone to take a risk that I would not take, nor would I ask another to bear a burden I refuse to shoulder or feel a mark I haven't felt myself. But yeah, she finally understood it when she saw like the extent of like how many people have been affected by the riot and everything that's been going on. And I think even what she does now is she said it herself. She's like, when she went to go talk to those families, she says, I'm not going to ask you guys to do something I'm not willing to do myself. Like she's really under like come to embody that advice that he gave her throughout her life. Um she's in this montage of like, you know, people are preparing for war and they're just like swords, knives, like she's just like packing in all the weapons, and Valen comes in and he's like, do you think you have enough weapons? And she said, throat warming, I glanced down at myself. I don't think you can ever have enough weapons. And he said, normally I would agree with that statement. But you will be the deadliest weapon on that battlefield.
I love that he recognizes how powerful she is.
Yeah, I do love that. And I like how she's like, that's her last resource. Like she's not taking this power and letting it become her crutch. And I think that's what people with power do is they're like, I have this power. I don't need to be skilled in anything else. But she is not relying on it. She's relying on her battle skills that she knows. And I think that's important too. But she talks to him about the um the dream that she had, um and everything going on with that. Oh, and she's also dressed in white, like her armor and everything is white, and she doesn't like it, but she knows that that's going to mean something to them. Her crown will mean like shit to them. They don't recognize that, but the white will. um and he was like, you remind me of someone, and he's like, I know, the maiden. And he says, no, I was going to say you look like one of my favorite paintings of the goddess Layla, to be exact, not in physical appearance, but the armor and the straight spine, the strength. There's actually a painting in the palace, not sure if you had a chance to see it, but it's of the goddess of peace and vengeance. She wore white armor. And I love that. Love Layla. And then they talk about the dreams, and he tells her here that it's soul walking, not dream walking. Said that the souls could find each other even in dreams. And he asked if that happened, and she's like, I think that's exactly what happened. Um, and so can't imagine that, to find out that like what I was experiencing was actually real. But then he says that he passed Kieran on the way to come see him. He says, I could tell he's worried about you, about why I wanted to speak with you. Other than his family, the only other person I've ever seen him this loyal to is Castile. And that kind of loyalty goes beyond any sort of bond, even a primal notum. He's good for you, for both of you. And I'm just like, oh, we love reassurance about Kieran and his amazingness. Um, but they're talking about how much he knows of what happened between Ileana and Elena. Um, and he says, if I had known the truth, I never would have retreated. I would have known that we couldn't end the war that way, that there was too much personal history there to ever be an end. And maybe that's why she kept a secret for so long. Or maybe it was because the lie had somehow become an unbreakable truth that held things together. I don't know, but what I do know is that I need to tell the truth now. I didn't know from the beginning, but I knew the truth about her for long enough. The whole situation is hard and complicated. You
No
don't
kidding.
say. Kieran hates what she's wearing, and I don't blame him. They're getting ready to go out. And I love this. Like Hissa, the captain of the guard, and Lysith, you can tell, have a personal history. And they're embracing each other and they say, be careful, but be brave. And I love that. I actually texted Steph when I got to that point and I was like, do you want to get tattoos that say be careful, but be brave?
We'll say that's a whole other tattoo conversation that I'm sure we'll have.
We
But
will.
the last two chapters in this part, chapter 13 and 14. So chapter 13, we are traveling to Oak Ambler to annihilate them. Not literally, actually. So then there's this point where there are so many people gazing at them, and Poppy makes this comment or notices this or says this thing that says, after spending so many years forbidden to be looked upon and veiled, I still wasn't used to this, to being seen. And I think that that is a very important um thing to note. Just like see how much time has passed. She's a queen now, she's a badass bitch, and she's still
And
like,
I think
I'm
it's
still not used to
interesting
this.
that in Atlantia, she's not as uncomfortable with it, but being back in Solus, that
Yeah,
uncomfort is coming back to her because that's where it really took root.
correct. um And she's not wearing her crown. And this at this point she left it next to Cass's because
That's where it should be.
that's where it should be. And then so they march up to the gates and she's like, tell your commander that the Queen of Atlantia wishes to speak with him. And the guard's like, bullshit, no queen would be stupid enough to march right up to these gates. And she's all like, perhaps none would be so daring. And then they shoot at her, and it's just like a whole stupid fucking thing. And Poppy like interacts with all these people that are, working to escape, and
They're
they're
fleeing the city.
they're fleeing, and they're like telling Poppy about all their children and like tell them that we'll come back for them, like we're not leaving them, XYZ thing. And Poppy just promises that she's gonna find them, and Kieran's like, you shouldn't have promised anything. And she's like, I only promised to find them. And
Yeah.
and it's just super tragic because um like just how this progresses anyway. But so they're talking back and forth with the guard, and they this Forsyth guy says they ascended to honor the gods by refusing the sunlight, but you, being of a godless kingdom, wouldn't understand that. And Emil goes, the irony is painful. And honestly, I just love his like quippy
Mm-hmm.
little statements. And the commander is just like, if you could take down the gates, you would have already. There's nothing you can take down. There's nothing that can take down these gates. And Poppy's like, bet. And she lets her will swell inside of her, and a distant rumble answers, echoing with the wind. And I'm like, all right, here we go.
It's about to
So
get
then
hot.
we get into chapter 14, and Commander Forsyth stops as a flock of birds suddenly scattered into the sky, then turned slowly. All along the rise, guards quieted, looking up as a shadow glided over the pines. And well, we can only imagine. Neath was roughly the size of Seti, a little bigger than the steed. He extended wings, the shade of midnight slowing his descent. A deep roar came from him like a crack of thunder, sending the guards and the commander into a frenzy state. And Emil's like, too late for that.
Should
And
have thought about that.
I love that. Neath rose, arc, arching. Listen, I don't know. Swiftly, as a much larger shadow fell upon us, Reaver dipped low, a third dragon following its greenish brown body, almost as large as Reaver's. Aurelia flew down the length of the wall, releasing a stream of fire above the rise, catching the guards before they had a chance to reach any of the stairs. Shouts rose, screams. I didn't look away. I think this is really important to note. She doesn't like, even people who are doing her bidding, she doesn't let affect her, like, or doesn't let her like numb her. She watches and she lets it simmer into her. Like she
Yeah.
doesn't let she shoulders that burden is really what I'm
Yeah.
trying to
She
say.
doesn't look away and pretend she didn't just do that. She's taking responsibility by watching and seeing what's going on.
Um,
Her mother could learn from her.
hmm. And then they come to this realization where they see thousands of people, and Kieran goes, thousands will be saved. And I think that that is so
Yeah.
beautiful
Because
that
these
they're
are people
here to
that were
save
trying
the
to
day.
leave and they closed the big
Yeah.
gates and wouldn't let them escape.
And like, I just don't understand why people are like this. Um, anyway, the a silvery webbing of ether formed in her mind, draping over the archers on the wall and moving into them. I didn't know exactly what it did, what I did, as the metallic taste pooled in my mouth. All I knew was that I wanted it to be quick and as painless as possible, and I thought it was. They made no sound as they collapsed where they stood, in the arrow loops falling backward and forward, dead before they hit the ground outside the curtain wall. That kind of power. So she's protecting. I think this is crazy how she decides when she's going to use her ether.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if I'd be able to control myself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just kind of yeet them. You know what I'm saying? Um, allowing the essence of the primal god to surface was like having the golden chains removed and the veil lifted. The more I allowed it to happen, the more it felt natural. I didn't think this would weaken me because it felt like I was no longer hiding who I was. It was almost a relief. And I think going from I'm not used to being stared at to like I'm free to make my own choices. I'm an all-powerful bitch ass. Like
Yeah.
is a slay.
And it would feel like a relief because I feel like having that much power that she's trying to like hold down so much, you need that like release to like keep it in check and not let it become build up and become too much. So
I
her
know.
allowing herself to do that is probably like, oh, some of this is off of me. I can breathe for a second.
Yeah. And so one guard offers to kind of show them where they need to go. And he's like Emil's like, keep walking. And Tazos literally don't know how to pronounce things. It's just like, there should be guards here, at least 10 of them.
Mhm.
And then they realize that ew,
It's
ew,
Misty.
ew, ew. It's Misty, yeah. And the only thing could be within it, the same thing responsible for these wounds, the Craven. And then then they think that they're done, but they're never done. It's the
There's
whole
always something else.
exactly. Um, but before we get to them finding the Craven, we're going to end this episode here and then restart part 2.
In
For
chapter
you guys,
15.
it'll be a day, but like for us, it'll be like an instantaneous thing.
In like 10 minutes after we go to the bathroom.
Yeah. So Sippin' and Bitchin' on all the things. Check us out, catch up on all the episodes, let us know what you're thinking. And we'll catch you on the next part. Bye.
Bye.